So now let's welcome Mr. Vivek Sehgal, Director General, OPPI. It's a organization of pharmaceutical producers of India, which represents research-based pharmaceutical companies in India. So let's welcome Mr. Vivek Sehgal.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Pokhriyal, for getting me over here. Interesting forum. I think ever since the morning I've been learning myself, and given the opportunity here, I'd like to share the thoughts of what I bring to the table. And I'd like to thank Harsh for leaving a very positive note, and my dais colleague, Madam Pratima, for being here, John, and of course, Mr. G.R. Raghavendra in absentia. My dear friends, let me just start by telling you what OPPI is about. Before I share my thoughts. OPPI is essentially an organization of pharmaceutical producers of India, established way back in 1965, represents the research-based global pharmaceutical companies in India. It has been an integral part of the healthcare system of the country, and we remain committed to supporting the nation's healthcare objectives and collaborating with all stakeholders to find sustainable solutions to realize the collective vision of health for all. OPPI believes the time is right for health and hope to intersect with innovation, government commitment, advanced science that drives medicine, and coming together to address the nation's healthcare challenges. OPPI believes the need for innovation must be balanced with the necessity for more accessible medicines, especially the unmet medical needs within a robust IP environment. In India, the past few decades, we have witnessed a steep and a tremendous growth in the pharmaceutical industry in terms of market capturing and contribution to the GDP of our economy. The domestic pharmaceutical market, estimated at about $42 billion, is likely to reach $65 billion by 2024. And is likely to further expand to 120 to 130 billion dollars in 2030. Now, that's a big sum. And let's not ignore the fact when the GDP grows, each one of us in this room and outside the room benefits from it. Because of the changing lifestyles and the high demand for quality healthcare, the Indian pharmaceutical is one of the most promising contributors to the Indian economy, as I said. Strong intellectual property rights will encourage enterprises to introduce more advanced products, boost global innovation, and promote faster economic growth. To enhance growth and the position India as a destination for the next generation pharmaceutical market, regulatory rules, particularly those governing patents and price control, must be addressed. Here, I'd like to emphasize the fact that India is known as the pharmacy of the world. It's time we are also known as the quality and innovation pharmacy of the world. That's the next step. And let me also share with you the Government of India's vision, who actually hold the public interest as paramount. The Honorable Health Minister, who's also the Minister for Chemicals and Fertilizers, expressed very clearly that we have to move from volume to value, thereby giving a big push to the overall high-value, innovation-based products to be developed in India. So strong intellectual property regulations reduce the likelihood of counterfeit medications, very critical to the health of everyone. Nobody in this room or even outside the room would want to give out a medicine where he or she is not sure can have the desired effect, much less have a negative impact on the health of the person. So stronger intellectual property rules will assure high quality generic medications at reasonable prices, as well as chances for India's indigenous talent to flourish both domestically and globally. IPRs preserve ecosystems capable of developing innovative outputs and transforming a country's economy through the use of technology. Pharmaceutical sector has always been a knowledge-intensive industry, and thereby probably you hear most of the cases for IPR related to pharmaceutical industry. At the same time, because it's a highly technology-based industry, it demands considerable investments. And investments not only in the products which come to the market, but a lot of products which don't see the light of the day because they fail in the test laboratories. Not every innovation is a success. It is not that a product is produced in the research lab and it goes through all trials and reaches the patient. So there is a cost attached to that. Therefore, it becomes imperative for pharmaceutical companies to obtain the protection of their inventions by acquiring patent rights, like any creator would. I think John talked about an artisan. Each creator has his right to his own creation. Let's understand that. Patent encourages developers, inventors to innovate further as it protects the investments made for research and development and creates an incentive for innovation. So research-based pharma companies require and expect IP rights to be strictly enforced in countries to ward off local manufacturers to produce counterfeit products, which are dangerous to anyone's health, copies of patented drugs, which often find their way back into even external markets. I think a point very important here. Counterfeit products from India finding ways to international markets. Considering the promising future of the pharmaceutical industry, the government is diligently involved in promoting this industry by introducing and enforcing regulations which are at par with global standards. And we are in a global market. We are in a global ecosystem environment. Just to give you an idea, the potential of this area, overall intellectual property, let me come to for a minute. So according to WIPO, which is the World Intellectual Property Organization, a Global Innovation Index in 2021, if properly utilized, it can actually lead to significant advances. And the country's ranking has steadily risen from 81 in 2015 to 46 in 2021. The sheer pace at which innovations are happening, the patents are happening, and our ranking is going up in the WIPO's GII, it will be equally important, and if not more important, to protect the innovators in India against patents. So it's not a India versus international story anymore. And that's the way it's going to go forward. In the 8th edition of the Global Intellectual Property Center Index, India's total score climbed from 36.04 in the 7th edition to 38.46%. This is a good omen because India has been steadily climbing the GIPC rankings as well. We have made several commendable efforts and won landmark cases regarding copyright and trademark infringements. Having said that, as we see increased FDI in the pharma sector as well as an increased push to promote R&D and strong IPR framework and enforcement are critical. So this is just to say that the infringement cases have been upheld by the courts, who once again are the people who are the custodians of public interest. Furthermore, as the pharma sector in India shifts from a manufacturing hub to a research-driven ecosystem, as I said, IPR will be critical to actually project innovators and creators, but more importantly, to ensure access to a larger population for the unmet medical needs. I underline that. Having said that, identifying and fixing present difficulties, which I'll just come to in a moment, as well as forecasting and resolving future issues, will ensure long-term growth of the sector, which will positively impact the healthcare ecosystem. I'd like to also highlight, before I go to the areas of concern, from this forum, I'd like to congratulate Department of Pharmaceuticals, Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers, for bringing in the strengthening of the pharmaceutical industry scheme, where, let me put across, the focus is on creating a research ecosystem. That's top of the agenda. And what have they done to do this? So not only the scheme provides for research studies, but has put R&D as the first priority in the cluster scheme. So there are these pharma clusters, for all those who may not be aware, across the country. And within these pharma clusters, there are common facility centers which are made. And these common facility centers are essentially to provide these common facilities to the cluster members, to the smaller manufacturers. So in this scheme, for creating the CFCs, one of the top agenda of the Government of India is to have R&D based common facility centers. R&D's common facility centers based around R&D. We see this as an encouraging step in the direction of innovation and research, and it reflects the drive for innovation by the Government of India. To build strongly on this and protect innovation, we expect a stronger IP regime going forward. The complexity of patents and intellectual property rights necessitates clear and secure systems to adequately serve the country's medical demands. I'll briefly touch upon 5 of those points. Significance of patent period. Regardless of the patent infringements or challenges, rules must ensure that the patents in dispute are awarded the entire patent life. We cannot have a situation where the half of the life of a patent is spent in court cases while it gets it is violated out in the field for as many years. It is very important to again simplify pre-grant oppositions. So we need to globally cooperate with other countries on the removal or revision of the pre-grant opposition from the Patents Act of 1970. Further, to promote the openness in the process, explicit criteria should be established to define interested parties who are qualified to file pre-grant oppositions as well as their timely disposition. I may not like to speak about this from a public forum, but uninterested parties, unrelated parties actually come in for pre-grant opposition, hindering innovation, hindering access to healthcare. Data protection. Before filing for patents, the innovator submits extensive reports, as you are including research papers outlining the safety and the efficacy of the treatments proven in clinical studies. It is very critical that the data is protected. The RDP, as what it is called, the regulatory data protection, the proprietary data of the originator or the company has to be safeguarded for patients' interest as much as in the interest of the innovation. We need to understand that. Like my friend Harsh talked about, a Mercedes at plus 20 lakhs and a minus 20 lakhs, you may be buying a Mercedes for safety reasons, but who knows which of the three is the original one at the end of the day? For a Mercedes kind of a product, it may be much easier. But can anyone here vouch for the fact that the medicine which they have bought from the chemist is not a counterfeit? And RDP is a big step which needs to be taken to ensure that counterfeiting is stopped. Reducing litigation, I think, is another very important part. We've been hearing of cases which have been pending in courts for years together, even in the newspapers, not necessarily related to IPR, but overall. CDSCO's Sugam portal is definitely a very good initiative in this direction, but needs to be fully utilized. And a reasonable beginning point would be to use the portal to notify the patent holder when a state regulator takes up a manufacturing and marketing license application. So here we are talking about different ministries, different departments being able to talk to each other and get their datas and not work really as much in silos. Technical experts, which we need on the dedicated benches of high courts, is the last point on the areas where we see we need some positive interventions. I'm sure all of us understand the technical nature of patents, especially in a product like pharmaceuticals, and as I hear, whether it is in technology, whether it is in automobiles, it does really impact the decision-making either ways, you know, in the lack of, in case there is a lack of knowledge with the bench. And here again, I would like to applaud the efforts of the government in setting up a separate IP cell for Delhi. And as discussed with the JS, you know, or in fact announced by him, that, you know, they would like to take it to other courts. Just to flag a few things, the unauthorized import of patent pharmaceuticals again poses a substantial risk to patient safety, because these drugs may be of very poor quality. For such a purpose, transparency throughout the pharmaceutical value chain, as well as a strong framework to control and eventually prevent the import of such pharmaceuticals, will be critical. This is another menace which the patients face, because we have counterfeit and unauthorized medicines coming through the borders. I think additionally, interactions amongst most of the stakeholders, from industry bodies to government and regulatory institutions, and even embassies, will be crucial in identifying and resolving a lot of these issues. As I said, we are in a global ecosystem, so we need to have a multi-stakeholder engagement to take these issues forward. I'd end by saying patient centricity is at the heart of the pharmaceutical industry. I'd just like to quote a doctor whom I had to meet for some not very pleasant reasons. And especially when you go to a private hospital, the bills run into lakhs. But one doctor very genuinely from that hospital told me, he says, after the family of the patient, I am the most interested party, even if you talk about vested interest for the patient to get well. So you have to believe in me. You have to believe in me. So carrying on, and we look forward to collaborating with the government, which we have been engaging with, and other stakeholders, both in India and overseas, to make India an innovation hub for pharmaceuticals. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you for your enlightening words, sir.